My clock is at 10:20, so we are going to start on time, end on time. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Jen Loescher. I have the privilege of working with the 5 southern counties in Nevada. And this topic that you have chosen to join me on is this idea of multiple access points, thinking about increasing equity in our math classes. And so got to start off with a little bit of humor today for the being in the middle of November. I think about just what this school year has been like for some of us, maybe what this past week was like for some of us. This was one of the few full weeks of November that we had of school. So possibly as teachers were leaving school, maybe some Sylvester Stallone was coming up, right, in them. And so definitely just honoring that and thinking about that. To be able to kick off, we are going to engage in a little bit of SEL check-in, social emotional learning check-in. So on your Pear Deck tab, you have some tools at the bottom of your screen. And these are maybe writing tools. There's some different colors there. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is look at these 5 sentences, these 5 intentions. And I'd like you to go ahead and mark which one is resonating with you the most. Which one is resonating with you the most out of those 5? Go ahead and mark that on your Pear Deck tab using your writing tools that are at the bottom of your Pear Deck tab. All right, so we have a little bit over half who have interacted with their slide. Thank you so much. I'll give you about 15 more seconds to read through those 5 sentences and mark it. We're almost at 100% of folks who have marked their slide. All right, here's where our space is today. So everyone in this room, these are the ones that have resonated with you the most. And you're going to link up on the Pear Deck. Heather just posted it again in the chat box, so please feel encouraged. Yes, that's how you're going to interact with the slides. Thank you, thank you. And so as I'm looking here at these markings, I definitely see a couple are heavier in marking versus the others. I see the may I be patient and may I be strong, even may I give myself the compassion that I need. So when I'm like looking to see how many have been marked on those, and I just really encourage you that if you have not engaged in this practice of intention setting and thinking about what do I need in this space right now to show up and do the work. So it's not a opting out of doing the work and thinking about how do we teach this to our kids and be able to really have them think, all right, I'm coming to class. What do I need so that I can learn to the best of my ability? What is it that I need right now in this moment in time? As you as a teacher, what do you need right now in this moment in time? Not to opt out, but to opt in, right? To be able to truly lean in. And so really being able to think about that is important to be able to set our brains up in order to leverage and get the most out of each moment and the learning. Another way to think about this, I came across this a few months ago, is a daily boost. And I like this. This one resonated with me because I thought about smoothies and I thought about like coffee when people say, oh, I'm going to put this boost into my coffee or smoothie. And I was like, yes, let's link this back to not necessarily what we're putting into our bodies, but other things that we need. What is our daily boost? Maybe I need a little bit of extra focus right now in these next 50 minutes. Maybe I need an extra boost of confidence to be able to fully engage to the best of my ability. So I really just appreciate this idea, as well as another link of that daily practice of thinking about what do I need in order to show up and do the work. All right, so we are talking and thinking about these multiple access points. On your Pear Deck tab, you have a text box that you are able to type in. I'd like you to go ahead and let's do a little bit of metacognition before we fully dig in. And I want you to answer it. Think about an answer. Why? Why are we wanting to divert any of our cognitive energy, any of our emotional energy into caring about this idea of multiple access points? So go ahead and type in what you're thinking about in terms of why is this important? Why are we diverting and using any of our precious commodity of cognitive and emotional energy? Go ahead and type that in. I love it. Beautiful, beautiful. I'm going to show some responses here of what folks are thinking in this space around this idea of multiple access points. Why? Relevance. And so I just really appreciate some themes are coming out in this as well. So thinking about our students thinking about strategies, thinking about, is it more important to be right and get the right answer? Or is it more important to think about our strategies? Is it more important to think about how are we approaching something? Learning styles and backgrounds are different. Yeah. Access, right? Because we're talking about equity. Able to join and understand. A lot, Dan Meyer talked about this a little bit as well this morning. How many of our students feel excluded from math? How many of our students feel like this isn't for me? I don't belong here. And that's why my behaviors are going to look like I'm apathetic. Many of our students are the students who exhibit the most apathetic behaviors, not all of them, but most of them are actually the ones who care the most deeply about what's going on. And that's why they're exhibiting those apathetic behaviors. Saving face, I'd rather be numb than dumb. That is going to trump all. And so because I care so much, that's what I'm putting out into the universe, is that sense of apathy. But it's not because I really don't care. Again, not all, but most. And so really trying to think about, how do we create this idea of access? How do we, without dumbing down the curriculum, right? Because that doesn't do anyone any good, without not avoiding those high expectations, how do we still make it where it's attainable so that our students believe that they belong and engage? I hear you. Yes. Because we care about each and every one of our students, right? All of our students, each and every one, not just one way to do something. Absolutely. All different levels, those different opportunities. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for connecting to the keynote. The power of math is the creativity. Yes, yes, yes. Right. I think that we need to talk more about that. We need to think more about that and reflect upon that. I'm right with you. Yes, thinking about those. Yeah. Any other emotion besides happy? Yes. And their learning is going to be impacted. I hear you. I know I'm that way. I'm definitely impacted by that. Yeah, thinking about confidence. Absolutely. The fact that they all deserve it. I'm right there with you. Number talks. Thank you. Diversity. Yes. Yeah. They know something. I love it. Beautiful. All right. Almost 100% of you engaged in being able to type out some of your thoughts around that. So I appreciate you. We're going to dig into some strategies that we can use. These are not the only strategies that have multiple access points and to be able to increase equity. These are just 4 concrete ways that you can think about being able to incorporate in your classroom. Some of you might already be doing some of these, and that's okay. All right. Which one doesn't belong? Whoa! All right. So lots of love, lots of appreciation for this strategy. And so I want you to go ahead and engage in that Pear Deck tab. You've got A, B, C, D. Put mark for yourself which one, in your opinion, does not belong from those 4 options, A, B, C, or D. All right, so we're at 28 folks who have responded. Give you just about 10 more seconds. Almost at 100%. Thank you, thank you. All right, and super funny in this space, we've got 2 answers out of the 4. That's super funny on how it got distributed for today. So we've got people who are in the A corner and people who are in the D corner. So I love it. That is super awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see here. So I want to come to Marcy. Marcy, if you're able to unmute, would you be willing to unmute and tell us, why did you pick D? All right, and Marcy might be having some tech issues, so I'm gonna come pop over to someone else instead. Laura, can I come to you? I can see you in the upper right-hand corner of my grid. Laura, would you be willing to unmute and tell us why you picked D? D as in dog.
I could try. I have no voice.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I've been sick for the whole week. I haven't even been at work.
Oh my gosh.
I picked mode because your mode can be anywhere within your number set. It could be at the beginning, it could be at the end, or the other 3 or more towards the middle.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Oh my goodness. And again, so sorry for the voice. That is super, super difficult. All right, Jamie, can I come to you? You're in my second row on my grid also. Can I come to you and would you be willing to tell us why you picked A?
I am so glad you picked me. The reason why is it does not go into the song that I used to teach kids on with Row, Row, Row Your Boat. So I took that one out.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. So one of the most powerful aspects of which one doesn't belong, please make sure that you do attend to this criteria when you are either looking for, or if you bridge out and create your own. Be very cautious. The power behind which one doesn't belong is because every single answer is correct based upon appropriate justification. There is not a single option that is wrong. What is wrong are some incorrect justifications. So there's a lot of right answers. There's a lot of reasons for each of those answers. And it's not that everyone gets a blue ribbon, because there are wrong responses, but not because I picked the wrong answer. It's if my justification is not sound, is not appropriate. So if you ever create your own, big time betrayal, and you will put a bullet hole through this strategy, through its power of impact on student learning, and through that ability to increase equity, if you put an answer, if you put a response that is not correct. Okay, so please be very aware of that. Every single response is correct based upon appropriate justification. So super important to always keep that in mind. All right, here we go. Another one. All right, let's take a look at this one. This time we're going to use the chat box. So this time use the chat box within your Zoom. And I want you to put either A, B, C, or D into the chat box. Which one does not belong? All right, I'm seeing a lot of C's. With you. Woo, my gosh, lots of C's. You guys are so funny. All right, we've got a B. All right. Awesome. All right, so let's see here. Okay, I'm seeing some responses also including justification. So I appreciate you. Thank you. And so I use this one because this will also happen with your students as well. Sometimes a lot, if not all of your students are going to zero in on one answer and they're going to be like, ooh, this one. And you might have a lot of similar reasons as to why. And that's okay, because what you will find, if you've never used this strategy before, what I found, what a lot of other colleagues have found, is that once students get comfortable with this strategy, they start to look for the not obvious response. Why is this important? This is important because how deeply are they thinking? What relationships and connections are they trying to find and create in their brains about numbers or about math or about whatever is going on in the situation, in order to be like, I'm going to find something that other people didn't catch on to. I'm going to find something that other people didn't think about yet, right? Like that's something that kids want. regardless of your age level. Let's not say kids. That's what human beings, that's what our brains will sometimes go for and want to do when we engage in a strategy like this. Let's see here. So yeah, and so B, okay, because they're not yellow. So keying in on colors. Yeah. So I mean, that's why some people might say the letter D, 25, because purple is the only non-primary color, right? I mean, like, yeah, we can bring some art into this, right? Knowledge into this as well. Let's see here. We got some prime. So we've got some vocabulary that's coming out in our responses as well. Perfect square. I love it, love it, love it. Yeah. So many different ways that we can lean into and helping our students be able to think about different things. Yeah. A, when you add the digits, it's even, where all the others add up to an odd, right? So again, what are some different ways that we can think about this? Multiple access points, more ways to be right. I'm going to connect that back to Dan Meyer. How can we create opportunities for our students in math class to have more opportunity to be right? Again, I am not talking about everyone gets a blue ribbon no matter what. That's not what this is about. This is about saying in math class, how many times do we ask kids a question where there's only one right answer? Those students who show those apathetic behaviors, they're actually thinking a lot about mathematically. They're actually deeply thinking, because if I know there's only one right answer, that means there's an infinite number of wrong answers. The deck is stacked against me. So if I know that I already struggle with this, if this is already a content area that I don't feel confident in, that I haven't tasted success in, peace out. I'm like, why bother? Because I know mathematically the chances of me getting a correct answer, like, it's infinite. My percentage is infinitely small for what are my chances. So if we can embed, if we can integrate, if we can balance out more often, more opportunity where I have more chances of being correct in this class, maybe I'll engage a little bit more. Maybe I'll be like, okay, I'm with you. I'm going to stay with you just a little bit longer through this learning process. Yeah, no, Kristen, exactly. Absolutely. I'm right there with you. All right, now this time let's go back to our Pear Deck tab. And this time you've got an icon on your screen. You've got a light bulb over to the right-hand side of your screen. And now this time I want you to drag your icon over which of those graphs do not belong. Pick which one of those graphs do not belong. Love it, love it, love it. So we've got a little bit over half of you have responded. Thank you, thank you. About 10 more seconds. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, and here's where we are in this space. Here is where we are. We've got a lot of B's in this space. So I appreciate you. Thank you, thank you. No one said A. No one saw a justification for A yet when you were looking at it, and that's okay, right? We can maybe think about a justification for each one, and we're going to move our icon just to one of our responses. So I definitely appreciate you. All right, let's see here. Emily, I want to see, can I come to you, Emily? Would you be willing to unmute and tell us why you picked C?
I'm here. I picked C because it was the only one that was less than. Everything else seems to be shaded greater than or above the graph.
Love it, love it, love it. And I see Kristen being like, me too, right? Yeah, so you're like, yeah, same. I picked that one and that was the reason why. I love it. Thank you, thank you. So lots of different ways we can tie these directly to our standards. We can tie them to long-term memory review type of questions as well. And this really, again, helps increase confidence. It increases that sense of equity because I have every opportunity to be correct. I have multiple opportunities. There's a lot of correct answers. I might even pick the letter B, and maybe I have a different answer or justification than someone else who also picked B. So now we're digging in deeper. We're digging into, I'm not asking you to explain your answer because the sky is blue. I'm asking you to explain your answer because there's a lot of different reasons why, right? And so now the value of your response increases. We need you to be part of our math community because just because you pick the same response doesn't mean your thinking and your justification was the same. And that's why we need you to share what's going on in your brain. It's not going to be the same, right? And so that gives more increased equity for thinking about that. Oh, and I want to show just one more idea before we move on. Like, math is everywhere. Math is in Peanuts, right? The comic strip, Snoopy. And I know a lot of our students might not even know what a comic strip is in a newspaper anymore at this point, but a lot of my students still knew who Snoopy was, right? So can I as a teacher be looking, where can I find math that's out there that I can pull in to these different strategies as well? And so that way you're able to say, yeah, and now let's talk about which one doesn't belong. Maybe you give them a word bank. Maybe you're like, Jen, I really need this tied even more tightly to my standards. I'm with you. Give them a word bank. Use this as a way to increase vocabulary use in your classroom. Say, within your reason, use at least one of these words. Put in those boundaries in there. Put in those guidelines. For our students who are maybe struggling with the language of English, they're learning the language of English. Maybe it's a student who is struggling with content. Maybe English is their first language, but because maybe their confidence is lower, they're very unsure, it's harder to access my reasoning, articulating my reasoning. Sentence frames and sentence stems. Let's do some strategy smashing. We know how powerful this is with our students. Let's use it with which one doesn't belong. Let's give them a leg in so that they can finish it out strong and be able to insert what was their thinking for which one they pick. So thinking about strategy smashing as well is super important. All right, let's go on to the next one. Would you rather? So every would you rather starts with those 3 words. Now, be very cautious. If you are on a school computer, I'm going to say that again. If you are on a school computer, do not Google would you rather. All right. If you're on a school computer, do not Google would you rather. There is a math site, would you rather math.com. Yes, go to that one if you're on a school computer. Okay, so every question starts with would you rather. And so we've got here, it's going to be heavy on graphic. There's going to be an image and then there's going to be some text there. Would you rather have 7/8 of your favorite pie or 11/14 of your favorite pie? You've got a text box on your Pear Deck tab. Feel free to go ahead and engage with that. I am going to move the slide for just a moment. Your text will not be lost and I'll bring it back in just a moment, but I need you to see this question on this slide, this would you rather, it's this question. How many times do we see this question? What do our students do when they see this question? They shut down, they check out. No one wants to engage in that. Like, that's not appealing. I don't want to involve myself with that. Even if maybe I'm competent and I'm successful with math, this does nothing for me, right? So that's what this question is. It's the same question. However, there's not one right answer. It still depends on justification. You are able to demonstrate your level of understanding. You are able to demonstrate your level of proficiency through multiple possibilities. It's not just a one answer, right or wrong. So you could say, I'd rather have 7/8, and you will explain your level of understanding of fractions based upon your justification. You might say, I'd rather have 11/14, and you will be able to explain and demonstrate your level of understanding through your justification, through your reasoning. Okay, so think about that. That's super powerful. So again, this is a question. We have 1,000 of questions like this where there's only one right answer. How can we flip that script just a little bit? Students can still be wrong. Again, this is not about everyone getting a blue ribbon. Students can still be wrong. Their justification, their reasoning, their thinking can still be wrong. There still might be movement and reasons for us to lean in through instruction, through redirection, to help them have a better and more correct understanding. But when I see this question, it's not you're either right or wrong. It depends on your response. I can start this answer, and therefore, yeah, it's more attainable. It's more accessible. I've increased equity for my content. All right. So again, there is a website, wouldyouratherbmath.com. John Stevens, who's actually from Pahrump, those of you who are maybe in Pahrump, he co-founded, either created or co-founded this website, and he maintains it. So please check it out. Do not use your time. Do not use your cognitive energy in trying to create these out of the gate. Find them. Find the ones that are connected to your standards, that are connected to long-term memory review that you want to build in, so that that way your students can engage with these strategies, but it's not causing you to spend 3 hours of your life trying to make sure that you're creating one appropriately or finding images or whatnot. Definitely think about it in the future, but when you're first starting out, know that you've got a plethora of items that have already been not only created, but used. He also has an accountability worksheet on his website. So if you're like, Jen, I like this, but I'm really worried about accountability with my kids, he's got one created for you where the students have to write out which one did they choose and why, their justification. And yeah, absolutely. It's right there for you to be able to think about. Okay, moving on. Next one. Same but different. Same but different. All right, guys. When I was in my first 5 years of teaching, I went to several trainings where they talked about Marzano's high yield strategies, 7 high yield strategies. Maybe put a 1 in the chat box if you have heard of Marzano's 7 high yield strategies. Put a 1 in the chat box if you've heard of those. And what they are is they are strategies that are cross-curricular. However, all right, so we got some 1s, we got to know. So be aware that how I was taught, one of them was compare and contrast. All right, yeah, like I was like, all right, I'm with you, rah, rah, rah. I'm teaching math. Okay, talk to me more about this. And every single example that they gave was ELA or social studies, every single time. And I was like, I get it. Like, I see how this works for here. And then when they came to math, do you know what they said? I'm not even going to tell you. Put in the chat box. Put in your chat box what you guess that they said for the example for compare and contrast in math. What was the one example that they gave? Put some skin in the game. Put it in the chat box. Make a guess. Make a guess. What do you think I was told for compare and contrast in math class, for how to be able to use compare and contrast in math class? What do they say? Geometry, odd and even, less and greater, geometry. Thank you. Thank you. Let's get a couple more. Odd and even, similarities and differences. What else? What else? What else? What else? Couple more. There's a lot more. There's 36 of you in here, 38 of you in here. Put a couple more ideas in there. But how? Compare and contrast how? Okay, with shapes. Okay, because that's what I definitely have shapes up here on my slide right now. Let's see here. Animals. Okay. All right, guys. What I was told every single time, they said Venn diagram. Venn diagram. They were like, this is how you compare and contrast in math. Use a Venn diagram. And I said, all right, like that'll work sometimes, but not every time. And so I continue to really struggle with, how do I use this high yield strategy? We know research-based that this is impactful for student learning, compare and contrast. And they constantly Venn diagram. And I got sick of it. And so what did I do? I did what a lot of teachers did. I pivoted and I abandoned. And I said, okay, I need to focus on other strategies because you're not making sense to me. This isn't being applicable to every part of what I'm teaching with my students in a flexible way. So when I came across this strategy, I did hear about it first from Sarah Vanderwerf. So I have her cited here on this side, and she called it same but different. I'm not saying she created it, okay? But I'm just telling you that's who I heard it from first. And so this idea of same but different, I could get behind this. I could use this over multiple topics, multiple content strands, multiple domains, multiple clusters. I could use this strategy in my math class on a variety of things. And those of you who also put in the chat box about geometry, right? That's another thing. When we go to school-wide PDs and they talk about a single strategy for the entire school, constantly geometry is the only way that the presenter knows how to be able to share, which is why I started with geometry on this one, because it tickles me, it makes me laugh. So this one, yes, I am showing geometry. We're going to see though, how do you same but different? Not through geometry as well. And so you see this collection and you're like, all right, talk to me. What is the same? What is different? This is compare and contrast. I'm going to move on to another example that's not geometry. Oh my gosh, fractions, right? Fractions break our kids apart, right? They break our adults apart. How many of our colleagues are like, don't give me a fraction? So we need to make sure that we're helping our students access fractions in a concrete way to be able to get to that abstract, same but different. So looking at these on your Pear Deck tab, you've got some different tools. I'm going to encourage you to engage either with the drawing tool and or using the capital T for a text tool, go ahead and start to engage in your slide. What's the same? What is different? What's the same between the left-hand side versus the right-hand side? The left-hand side, we see 1 + 1 + 1. We've got the 3 green rectangles. And then on the right-hand side, 1/4 + 1/4 + 1/4. And then we've got the visual representation on that right-hand side. What is the same? What is different? All right, so we've got 7 folks already engaging in their slide. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Some people are using the text tool. Some people are drawing. I appreciate you. Lots of different ways to be able to express what is the same and what is different. Love it. Thank you, thank you. So 17 of you have started to interact. Thank you, thank you. Yeah. I'm seeing some people mark up in using different colors to be able to show what's the same, what's the different, as well as using that text box to type out their thinking, circling some different things. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, thank you. All right, over 20 of you have started to interact. Yeah, and then some of you are starting to use some academic vocabulary, right? We're looking at whole numbers, we're looking at fractions, we're looking at parts of a whole. I appreciate you. We're talking about addition. We're talking about the rectangles and the shading. What does that mean? What does that represent? How is that represented numerically versus visually? So the trick to the text tool is there is a capital T. When you click that capital T, then you click one time on your slide and that makes it be the text box where you can start to type. And then you're able to do other things with it once you get it there and you start typing. All right, so on this slide, I've also cited another person to check out if you're interested in other ways of bringing in this idea of same but different. Berkeley Everett, and then I have his website cited there as well. Okay, we're moving on. Another idea. So always thinking about smashing strategies together. Jamboard. We know that Jamboard is a tool that some of us use in our classrooms to be able to get more students involved and active with their learning and participation. So this teacher posted on Twitter and said, hey, I love this idea of same but different. I'm thinking about how to use it with Jamboard, but here's like the cream to this is the colors. So she took it even one more extra level. And we know that it's been difficult to be able to get our students to engage vocally and willing to be able to share out verbally what they're thinking. And so this teacher went ahead and said, okay, if it's the same, make it yellow. If it's different, make it blue. And then if you're willing to share your answer, if you're willing to share your thinking, change your Post-it to orange. Right? So the kid, you're not like, raise your hand. Oh yeah, I'm not raising my hand. Like, are you crazy? I mean, think about how many of us are in large group settings, larger maybe even the space that we're in right now. And the facilitator, whether it's your principal or it's a colleague or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, raise your hand, whatever. Yeah, I'm not raising my hand. Are you raising your hand? Oh yeah, I'm not going to raise my hand. I mean, come on. A lot of us do the same thing our kids do. But maybe if I could signal to you in a on the down low type way, that way then it's the teacher saying, all right, yes. So Kelly, talk to me more about what you're thinking. Even though Kelly, maybe she changed her Post-it to orange. And so therefore, yes, I'm calling her, but she wasn't like, pick me, right? Calling myself out. The teacher called me up, didn't call me out, and I didn't call myself out. So just again, thinking about other ways to engage in this. All right, looking outside in real life. Where else can we see? Where else can we bring in opportunities in our classroom and talk about what is the same, what different? And of course, I look at this now from the picture that I took and said, oh, I wish we were back in those days, right? Ooh, oh, I wish we were there. Okay, but we can still bring in, we can talk about this idea of decimals and decimals with fractions and representations. And what does this mean? And how are these the same? How are they different? Are they equivalent? Are they not? How do we know? All of that can be there. All right, we're moving on. Another strategy, open middle. Woo, I know Dr. Barb is like, yes, yes, right? So open middle, if you have not engaged in open middle questions yet, ooh, make this be your golden nugget takeaway. Please take a few moments today to check it out. Openmiddle.com is one website. When you look at the slide that I'm sharing in the bottom right-hand corner, you also see robertkaplinsky.com. And so you can find open middle questions in both places. Robert has created matrices like the one I'm showing for each grade level, where he's taken the standard and said, okay, what do the questions look like in most of our programs and most of our textbooks? What are common questions that we see 1,000 of? And he puts that in the DOK level 1. Not to throw away DOK level 1. Do not throw out DOK level 1. They have a purpose, they have a place, they have a reason, and they are important. They are critical. Are we only asking those questions? Now, how can I increase rigor without emotionally betraying my students and bringing in other skills that are needed? Let me tell you, most questions that I engage in with other teachers, and I say, all right, if we wanted to increase the rigor of this question, where would you go next? Boom, other skills, other concepts are pulled in, multidimensional. And guess what? You give that to a kiddo, peace out. You had me thinking I was being successful with these DOK level 1 questions, and then you throw something at me that pulls in other things that I needed to know about that I don't know, because I have Swiss cheese for my math understanding. I've got holes of various sizes and all different locations. So great, guess what? I'm done, I'm out. I don't belong here. Robert Kaplinsky has created a series of saying, here's the DOK level 1, we still need to give our kids. And now when you're ready to increase the rigor, what does that look like where we're only still using that same skill set needed in DOK 1? I'm not pulling in anything else. It is still the same, nothing else is added. Now it looks different and it sounds different. Increase of rigor, complexity, not difficulty. So lots of ways to be able to have these problems, multiple access points, and many of them have multiple answers that are correct. Okay, so really think about, if you haven't come across open middle yet, huge, 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 impactful. Please, please, please let your students engage in this. Lots of ways that we can engage in open middle electronically, digitally, virtually. So you can use, so here's an example with Pear Deck where you've got those tools. You could engage in this. Notice though, I'm showing this to you also. Please look at the questions that are at the bottom. Open middle, if you are going to get the full impact, you have to have these questions. It can't just be throw out the use digits 1 to 9 one time each here, and now give me your answers. You have to engage your students in these questions before they do their second attempt, before they do their third attempt, before they do their fourth attempt. They have to engage with those questions. Super key. If you remove those questions as a requirement, you are going to diminish the impact of open middle questions greatly on student learning, on student outcomes. The other thing I want you to think about with open middle questions, it is expected that you don't get the answer right on your first try. How many questions do we give our kids where that is the expectation? So it's not just about celebrating mistakes. It's about honoring that mathematicians do not engage in math to get the answer right on their first try. That is not what mathematicians do. They do not engage with this false expectation that I am going to get the right answer on my first try. And if I don't, I'm not a mathematician. Our students believe that. Some of our teachers, some of our colleagues believe that. Many of our family members believe that. We have to chip away at that core belief that has been created. If I am a mathematician, if I am thinking like a mathematician, it is not expected that I get the answer right on the first try. So please be aware of that. Please be thinking about that when you're looking at what questions are you asking your kids. Are you ever asking them questions that prove it's not about speed and it's not about getting the right answer on the first try? It's about so much more, right? This is what Dan Meyer was talking about earlier. Math is not just about that single computation. It's so much deeper. It's so much richer. It's so much more creative. It's so much more complex. Yes, Nerdle is awesome, Emily. Okay, I need to draw your attention to the chat box. Heather has put into the chat box the attendance link. So please just simply be aware of that it is easily accessible in the chat box right now. It hasn't been shoved up. She will put it in there more than once, but please be aware that it is there right now. All right, we are moving on. I want to show a few more ideas. Those were the 4 main strategies of being able to think about. So which one doesn't belong? Would you rather, same but different, open middle. Those are the 4 main strategies on what is accessible and attainable to us as teachers to dip our toe when increasing equity in our classes through multiple access points. There's a lot of different ways to increase equity in our classes. Mathematical identity, thinking about going deeper with mathematics, those are other ways. So today our main focus was increasing equity specifically through the vehicle of multiple access points. All right, so another idea, flipping the script. I used that language earlier in this session. Look at what you're asking your students. It's really in the questions. Look at your questions. Can I flip the script? So instead of asking them to do a computation problem, and you're going to notice a theme of fractions because fractions is like so heavy, right? People are like, no, give me anything but a fraction. So give them the answer and say, what is a question that would create this answer? So many possibilities, multiple access points. There is not just one right answer. Now, are there wrong answers? Yes, there are absolutely wrong expressions that would result in 1 3/4. But man, are there so many that are right? And it's okay if you're like, Jen, my kids are just going to say 1 3/4 times 1. Okay, guess what? I'm celebrating that because thank God they know that anything times 1 is itself. Wow, this is huge for algebra, okay? Do not diminish what students are bringing to the table. Do not diminish their assets. Celebrate them, use them, leverage them to continue the progression of their learning. Do not diminish what they're bringing to the table. Oh, but Jen, they're going to say this plus 0. Great. They know that anything plus 0 is itself. We need that. We need those properties when we get into further learning in mathematics down the road, and give them that access point. Because guess what? Not every kid's going to do that, right? It's just like the which one doesn't belong. There's going to be other kids who are going to be like, I'm going to create a 3 numerical expression that's going to create this, right? Maybe I'm going to draw a picture that represents this. Holy cow, talk about some different representations. Oh, NEPF number 3, those of you in Clark County School District, NEPF number 3, right? Multiple representations, not you, the teacher, creating the multiple representations. Your students are creating multiple representations. I need you in my classroom because we need your representation in order for there to be multiple representations. So again, what is the value of you being in this room? How do we need you in our learning to help us continue our learning? So really be thinking about all of those different sorts of ways as well. Okay, here's another idea. Again, fractions. Okay, so you give your students power. A lot of our students do not feel empowered when they walk into math class. That's another reason why they shrink. They crawl back because they're like, there's no power. I have nothing. I don't belong here. So you have the ability to change. And I would change my verbiage here just a little bit. Instead of number, I'm going to change that to digit. I need to be a little bit more precise in this example. You have the ability to change exactly 1 digit or symbol to make this simpler for you. Another key language here. I did not use easier. It is not about something being easy or hard. What's easy for me is not easy for everyone else. Okay. I really need you to let go of that word. If that word comes to your lips, I need you to be cognizant and replace it with simpler. There are simple things and there are complex things. You need to get rid of easy and hard. That is very judgmental. That will shut kids down. That is sending them a message loud and clear. Oh, if this is not easy for me, I don't belong here. Math is not for me then because it's easy for everyone else. I don't belong. We have got to stop using judgmental language in our math classes. That's one easy way. I just did it. That's one simple way for you to be able to access and say, okay, I need to get rid of that word. I'm still working on it as point there. Okay, so looking at this, if I change 1 digit or 1 symbol to make this simpler for me, What would I change? How did it make it simpler? And now solve my new exercise. Talk about serious power. Now, if I'm like, ooh, I need to change that division. I don't like division. It's not for me. That's fine. But tell me, what are you going to change that division symbol to? And tell me, why is that now simpler for you to be able to solve this? If somebody changes one of the digits, what digit did they change and why? They talk about X-ray into their brains. Like, this gives you some serious information about their understanding, where they are at, and where they are ready to go. This is heavy, and this is a single question. And this is a question that makes me feel empowered, which means, am I going to fight you as much to answer this? I'm going to fight you a little bit less because I feel like this is attainable to me. Okay, because I feel empowered. All right, here's another one. How often, I want you to reflect, how often in your own learning, think kindergarten through 12th grade, think college. I know for me, this was very apparent in college. That happened to me more than once, where I studied for a test. I took 3 hours to study for a test. I go in, I take that test, and you know what? There's something that maybe I spent like 30 minutes of my 3 hours studying, and there was not one single question on that test. Ooh, that's a knife to the back. I felt emotionally betrayed. I was like, you, right? There's the blame, the finger waggle. You wasted 30 minutes of my life and you dared not ask me about this. Oh, now, because I was the student that I was, I didn't have that prevent me from studying again in the future. But I need you to think about a lot of our kiddos. If that happens one time, how many of our students will say, I'm never doing that again. And what is that? I will never study again for another math test, because obviously I studied for something that teacher dared not put on the test. Forget you. I'm going to play my games. I'm going to watch my movies. I'm going to listen to my music. I'm going to do anything but study ever again. And it's an ever again, right? It's that generalization. It is that paintbrush sweep. Let's avoid that. How can we avoid that? We can marry relationship building with our content. We talk so much about building relationship. Build relationships so that you can teach content. They are divorced. They are in separate buckets. They're not even a Venn diagram. I challenge you to say, how can we marry relationship building while we are teaching content? Not divorced, not separate. How can we also do that? Here is one way. Add this question to your assessments. What else do you know about dividing fractions that I didn't ask you? Because we're not going to ask you 100 questions on this test, right? And that's why when I studied for a test, not every question that I studied was on it, because they're not going to put 100 questions. We are not ever going to do that, because that's crazy. But this lets me ask the questions that I need to, and it tells my students explicitly, not implicitly, it tells my students, I know you know things that I did not ask you. I want you to tell me. I need you to tell me. I need you to share with me, what else do you know that was not on this assessment? And now I'm building relationships at the same time as checking for understanding. That's powerful. That is super powerful. That's honoring my students' assets. That's telling my student, you do know something. You might have gotten 0 out of 9 of the other 9 questions that I asked, but you know this. There is something that you're bringing to the table. Tell me what it is, because I need it to continue to push you forward. We need that to shore up the holes of your Swiss cheese, right? So really being able to think about that. All right. I need to make sure that I am honoring time. We're almost down to our last 5 minutes. And so I need you to be aware that Heather has put into the chat box the survey for this session. So again, earlier she put the attendance link. This link that she just has now is at the bottom of the chat, so easily accessible, is the survey for this conference, for this session. And while you're doing that also, I need you to also engage in thinking about one of these strategies that we have explored today. Which one doesn't belong? Would you rather? Same but different. And then either an open middle question or that non-routine question, right? So we looked at, if I give you this answer, what could be a question? We looked at if you changed either a digit or symbol, what would you change? How does it make it simpler? What's a new exercise? And then we talked about how do we marry relationship building with content. So I want you to think about what is a strategy that you are going to use next week. And you've got, and so I know folks are using their Pear Deck tab. Thank you so much. There's a text box there. If you would rather use the chat box, you're more than welcome to do that, is your choice. But go ahead and type in what's one strategy that you are going to use, and in hopes of either next week or maybe next month, right? Because again, I know next week's a short week. Maybe it's the week after when we come back after Thanksgiving break. But I want you to really think, what are you going to use immediately? What can you put into play to increase equity, to access your content in math class? All right, I love it. I love it. I'm seeing both Pear Deck and chat box. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and I love some of the specificity around the context that some folks are choosing. I appreciate you. Yeah, and Pear Deck, I love it. I know it is so. I love this. I know it's like Nearpod. So I know some folks like Nearpod. I love them both, and so absolutely, it helps really increase that interaction, increase some accountability. Yeah, thank you, thank you. Yes, I love it. Yeah, opening that up. It's so awesome. I know. And sometimes we forget about these strategies, right? We come across them, we like them, and then there's a lot. There's a lot. Some of us are carrying a bag of like 1,000 strategies. We can't use them every day. And we start using a few, and maybe we get into that flow and routine. We forget about some of the other ones. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. And thinking about when you might use the strategy, right? So some people are identifying that warm up and saying, okay, yeah, I want to use that not only with what standard, but when through my lesson might I use this? Because we don't want to upend our lesson flow. That's not the purpose. That's not going to help improve student outcomes, right? So we need to think, how do I embed this into the flow that I already have? Yeah, thank you for the language adjustment as well. Yes, simple, not easy. It's so important. We don't realize some of the language that we use and the impact that it's having, the message that it's sending. We're not aware. We learned a lot about that when growth mindset, when that started coming into our purview from Carol Dweck, and how we really need to get away from using, oh, you're so smart. It just ends. It's a period, and it tells everyone else who heard it, then I must not be, because she didn't tell me, he or she didn't tell me that I was smart. So that must not be me, right? Even though that's not the message we're trying to send. The person that you did tell was so smart, that almost starts to create imposter syndrome, because now it's like, oh, I can't ever let somebody know that I'm not smart. So now how do I do that? How do I protect and make sure I don't take risks? I'm the poster child for that. It took me until I was adult to understand what had been cultivated and fostered in my life in learning that I had to break out of. Not until I was an adult. And even then, I catch myself and I say, oh, am I choosing not to take that risk because I don't want to be found out to be a fraud? Can I take this risk? Can I find a way for it to be safe enough for me to take this risk in my learning, so that way I can continue to push and grow? We have to make sure, we got to be thinking about the language that we're using and what it's sending, what message it's sending to our kids. Yeah, I love it. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Super exciting. Oh my gosh, your kids are so super lucky that they have you as a teacher who is choosing to come here on a Saturday to engage in this learning, thinking about these strategies, thinking about how are you going to adjust your instruction delivery immediately to improve student outcomes. So I just definitely appreciate you. I want to honor our time. We're less than a minute for the end of the session. So again, as a quick reminder, Heather has posted the survey link again into the chat box. So please do make sure that you complete that as well. I appreciate you. I honor you. And I am grateful for you spending this time with me. I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference today. Have a beautiful Saturday. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you. Yes, we got to have energy through the screen. Thank you so much.
Hi, Jen. I have a question.
Okay.
You said to avoid using